The Steel type is undeniably the best defensive type in the game, with 10 to 11 resistances depending on the generation, 1 immunity, and only 3 weaknesses. But Sinnoh's Steel Gym is one of the most sweepable gyms in the whole franchise. Today we're going to be taking a look at what makes Byron one of the easiest gym leaders in the Pokemon world, and what could be done to make his team more challenging. Before we get into it, consider hitting like and subscribe to support the channel. Also, this video will be discussing Pokemon Platinum, but my points mostly also apply to Diamond and Pearl as well as the remakes. The first reason that makes Byron such a pushover is that all 3 starter Pokemon have a really good matchup against him. Infernape has super effective stab, fire and fighting moves, which can easily one-shot Steelix and Magneton, as well as doing decent damage to Bastiodon. Empoleon also matches up well with a 4 times resistance to steel and super effective water moves for 2/3 of his team. Finally, Torterra has Stab Earthquake to do big damage to all 3, and while he might only be able to one-hit kill Magneton, he's bulky enough to take a few hits during the fight. None of them, except maybe a very lucky Infernape, could fully sweep the fight in 3 hits, but considering the vast majority of players will have one of these Pokemon, it's no wonder no one struggles against this guy. The second reason why Byron is so easy is the moves your Pokemon can learn at this point. This gym comes at a really unfortunate time in the game, since you will have just got the HM for Surf, which is a pretty good Byron counter on its own, but what makes this worse is that with the Surf HM, you can take a short detour to the Fuego Ironworks and get a Flamethrower TM. This gives you 2 really good attacks, which are each super effective to 2 of his team members, and they target his lower special defense. And they're not the only good moves you can get. Earlier in the game, you can pick up TMs for Earthquake, Brick Break, and Dig, so quite a few of your Pokemon will have super effective moves into his team. And speaking of team members, the third reason that makes this fight so trivial is that his team is weak to so many popular Sinnoh Pokemon. I already mentioned the starters, but other Sinnoh staples like Gabite, Lucario, Houndoom, Gyarados, Gliscor and Floatzel are all really good counters to his team with their powerful, super effective, fighting, ground, fire and water type attacks. Looking at what Pokemon are available at this point, the only ones that are going to struggle against Byron are Pokemon that have low stats and generally struggle throughout the game, like the early game bugs, or Pokemon who lack coverage. Even Pokemon that theoretically shouldn't do well in a Steel Gym can get by thanks to good moves and utility. Finally, I want to look at what could have been done differently to make this fight more interesting. The first obvious change for me is to swap out Steelix for Empoleon. Not only does this remove a fire weakness, but it also gives Byron some special defense that his current team is lacking, and with Bubble Beam, Flash Cannon and Aerial Ace, he'd have good coverage and be able to hit both fire and fighting types for super effective damage. I think Aqua Jet would be a good way to round off this moveset to give his team some much needed speed. I also want to take some inspiration from his Diamond and Pearl team and give him a Bronzong with Levitate. This gives him a way to not just be swept by ground moves, and Stab Extrasensory can do some good damage to fighting types like Infernape. I also think Trick Room would be a great way to put things in Byron's favour, since the majority of his Pokemon are quite slow and vulnerable to being one-hit killed. Bronzong can learn a bunch of really good moves, so there's a load of different ways he can be useful, like Light Screen and Reflect for team support, Flash Cannon or Gyro Ball for a way to damage dark types, and Confuse Ray or Hypnosis to get some more hits in. I think his Magneton actually has a pretty good moveset, but his Bastiodon doesn't really get much use out of Iron Defense and Taunt, since the majority of the time you'll do more than 50% of his health on the first turn. I think replacing them with Iron Head for consistent damage and Sandstorm to boost his special defense would be a lot more useful. It's always a shame when gym leaders don't provide a challenge. I think Byron's current team would actually be the perfect difficulty if he was the 5th gym leader instead of the 6th, but his gym just comes at a really bad time in the game. There's so many different ways you can take him down, and he can't do much to you in return. This is my first time making a video like this, and if you enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate you liking and subscribing to let me know. I have a few more similar videos planned, but I'm also open to suggestions in the comments. Thanks for watching, and hopefully, I'll see you next time.